listen for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 3, Episode 7 review of the Scooby Doo Show. So last time I continued my 2025 Summer Special with a review of Season 3, Episode 6 of the Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 3, Episode 7 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled The Creepy Case of Old Iron Face, which was released on October 21st, 1978. The short synopsis of the episode is, Old Iron Face, a legendary character who haunts the area around an island prison, terrorizes the gang. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 3, Episode 7 of the Scooby Doo Show on the Scooby Doo Are You, the complete series box set. This box set has both seasons of Scooby Doo Are You, as well as the third season of the Scooby Doo Show. Like I said in my previous videos, if you're wondering why the third season of the Scooby Doo Show is on the Scooby Doo Are You complete series box set, it's because Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers like to falsely advertise the third season of the Scooby Doo Show as a fake third season to Scooby Doo Are You. But as I've established on the channel many times, there was no third season of Scooby Doo Are You. Scooby Doo Are You only had 2 seasons, while the Scooby Doo Show had 3 seasons. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I believe most fans like this episode. Iron Face is a pretty well-remembered, iconic Scooby Doo Show villain, and this episode does get a good amount of discussion around it. It's one of the Scooby Doo Show episodes that does get some discussion around it. But with that being said, despite Iron Face's status as a well-remembered, iconic Scooby Doo Show villain, is this episode still good? Or is it maybe a terrible episode, or maybe an average one? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins with the gang water skiing when they encounter another water skier who is using man-eating sharks for skis and wears a creepy iron mask. He begins to chase them, but they escape. The gang then head to a local restaurant to meet Captain Morgan, their tour guide for Skull Island. The island used to hold a prison for the most dangerous criminals before it was closed and turned into a tourist attraction. The gang is discussing the man in the iron mask when Mama Mione, the owner of the restaurant, begins telling them the story of Old Iron Face. She claims he's the one who haunts Skull Island after being a prisoner there years before. He wore an iron mask so no one would have to look at him. They decide to leave after Captain Morgan does not show up, and while they're leaving, Velma notices that a truck is unloading a lot of food into Mama Mione's restaurant. The gang, worried about Captain Morgan, decide to head to Skull Island to find him. Upon arrival, they find Captain Morgan's boat and decide to split up, with Fred, Velma, and Daphne searching the grounds, while Shaggy and Scooby search inside the prison. It is there that they are once again chased by Old Iron Face. And I gotta say that when Shaggy and Scooby open the door to the prison, there's some unknown voice that yells no. I don't know if that was an actual ghost or if that was Iron Face himself, but that was definitely odd. And we get a fun little door chase scene where Shaggy and Scooby try to nail 3 steel prison doors shut, but Iron Face is just so strong that he breaks through all of them and still is able to chase after Shaggy and Scooby.
Like that ought to keep old Metal Puss out of here.
We also get another funny Shaggy and Scooby scene where they decide to dress up as prison guards and make the ghost of Old Iron Face do jumping jacks with them, and it's pretty funny. I love seeing Shaggy and Scooby dress up as prison guards to fool the villain. And it's definitely my favorite scene of the episode. Definitely is the highlight of the episode. Shaggy and Scooby were hilarious in this scene.
Hold it right there, prisoner 763458. It's exercise time. Fall in. Hup, 2, 3, 4. Hup, 2, 3, 4. Hup, double time, double time. Hup, 2, 3, 4. Hup, 2, 3, 4. Prisoner! Hup! Right face. Now we're gonna do our jumping jacks. Hup, 2, hup, 2, hup, 2.
Meanwhile, Fred, Velma, and Daphne search the boathouse and they discover crates of food like the ones that Mamma Mia owns. They also discover a tunnel leading under the old prison. They follow it and end up in an underground mansion. And it's not explained at the end whose underground mansion this is. I don't know if Mamma Mia built this mansion for herself, or if this was the prison warden's underground mansion when the prison was still operational. But the underground mansion is never expanded upon. We don't know whose it is. And if it's Mamma Mia, she had to have a lot of people, built this. I mean, she definitely needed a lot of staff for these prisoners. So, considering how large the underground mansion was, she definitely needed a big staff. So there was definitely a lot of off-screen help from Mamma Mia. But it's not known whose mansion this is. We don't know if this is a prison warden's mansion that Mamma Mia renovated, or if Mamma Mia built this from the ground up. Either way, it's quite impressive, and I wish we got an answer to it. The place is ransacked, making it look like several people were living there. By the way, we get another voice animation error, where Daphne's voice comes out of Velma's. Once again, I don't know why this keeps being a trend, but for some reason, Daphne's voice just keeps coming out of Velma's in the past couple of episodes with these constant voice errors. Velma hears moaning, and they discover Captain Morgan bound and gagged in a hole in the ground. He had been kidnapped and down there for hours. Meanwhile, Old Iron Face continues to stalk Shaggy and Scooby. They escape the island with Old Iron Face still in pursuit. However, Fred designs a trap to catch the ghost using a magnetic crane to grab the monster's iron mask, and it ends up working. Afterward, Velma unmasks Old Iron Face, and it turns out to be Mamma Mia. Fred explains that a restaurant on the mainland was just a cover for a real business, smuggling criminals. The sharks she used to ski on were torpedoes with faces painted on them, which she used to smuggle escaped convicts in and out of her hideout on Skull Island. The criminals paid her a large sum of money for this service. As a champion water skier, she took advantage of the legend of Old Iron Face to scare people away from her operations. When she learned the island was going to become a tourist attraction, she had to empty out her hideout and move the high-paying criminals back to the mainland, which is why the gang found the prison empty. An undercover detective, Agent Hargrove, who had been working on the case for months, then appears to take Mamma Mia into custody. The next morning, as the gang are leaving the island, they see Scooby imitating Old Iron Face, riding the torpedo sharks, and the episode ends with him falling into the water after nearly crashing into their boat and taps on the glass-bottom window while saying his famous catchphrase. I'm going to give Season 3, Episode 7 of the Scooby Doo Show 4 stars out of 5. So yeah, finally, after a string of episodes that ranged from average to below average to terrible, we finally have an episode in Season 3 that I can consider good. At least for the moment. There might be some more down the line that could be better than this one. But so far, this is the best episode so far. This was a great episode to watch. It was by no means perfect. It had some flaws in it, which I'll get on to first before I get into the mountains of positives that I have for the episode. But this episode overall was a fun experience, and I could see why it's highly regarded, why the villain's highly regarded, and it's one of the more memorable Scooby Doo Show episodes, because it's genuinely a good episode. And especially after how Season 3 has been so far, it's nice to finally have a really good episode like this. So before I get into my positives for the episode and what makes this episode a good episode, I'll first get into my negatives for the episode and what hold this episode back from being a 5 out of 5 episode. So starting with the negatives, the only negative that is holding this episode back from being a 5 out of 5 episode is Fred, Daphne, and Velma. They were the only three that were weak in this episode. I found Fred, Daphne, and Velma all to be weak in this episode. We'll start with Fred. Fred, I don't really think was much of a leader in this episode. I didn't really get the sense that he was much of a leader, at least not to me. Or at least there wasn't that many moments where he felt like he was leader. I didn't get the sense that he was piecing together the clues to help solve the mystery. And he didn't really create a cool trap in this episode. He kind of just used the magnetic crane, which was already there for the mountains of food crates that Mama Mion was bringing in. So it wasn't a trap that he created, and it wasn't a cool, innovative trap that he used to his advantage. It was kind of like, okay, he just used a crane. I mean, to catch Iron Face, but it's not anything cool or noteworthy. Daphne, I mean, she didn't break her streak at all. Daphne didn't really do anything either. She wasn't a leader. She didn't piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. She wasn't funny or cowardly. And she didn't really find any clues in this episode. The clues that were found by collectively as a group by Fred, Daphne, and Velma. There was no one person that really found individually a clue. So, yeah, Daphne, I don't really think stood out in any way for me. And then, lastly, you have Velma. And when it comes to Velma, she didn't fulfill her basic role of helping to piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. At least I don't feel that she did. It didn't really seem like that the gears were turning in her head and she was piecing everything together. She wasn't much of a leader in this episode. She didn't really find any clues individually. She did with Fred, Daphne, and Velma, but calling them clues, is a bit of a stretch, to be quite honest, with some of the things they find. But they were technically clues, so Velma didn't really stand out in any way either, so it was really just Fred, Daphne, and Velma to me. If they had just done a better job with their characterization and did enough to make it feel like Fred was a good leader in this episode and created a cool trap, and that Velma helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. And if they gave Daphne something noteworthy to do, whether that be something like Fred's role, where she's a leader, whether that be something like Velma's role, where she's helping the piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, whether it's something like Shaggy and Scooby's role, where she's funny or cowardly, or whether it's something unique, like, finding clues in the episode, or being the heart of the gang, just something for her to stand out. And for me, she didn't, and all three of them were really what hold this episode back from being a 5 out of 5 episode. If they just had done a better job with their characterization in this episode, I think I would have considered this a really good episode. But as it stands, this is my only gripe with the episode, that Fred, Daphne, and Velma were all weak in this episode. But that's all I got for negatives. So let's get on to the mountains of positives that I have for this episode. So starting with the positives, my first one is I think Shaggy and Scooby were good in this episode. They fulfilled their basic roles. They were their usual funny, cowardly selves. So I had a good enough time with them. They were quite funny with Iron Face. They definitely had a great back and forth with Iron Face. Their chase scenes were quite fun and entertaining. They were quite cowardly in the episode. And rightfully so, because Iron Face was very intimidating in this episode. And Skull Island isn't exactly a island I would want to visit, especially an abandoned prison on the island. No thank you. But yeah, Shaggy and Scooby did fulfill their basic roles. They didn't do much outside of that, but I feel like that's okay. They weren't really bait for any sort of trap, because Fred was just on the fly, just used the magnetic crane to his advantage. And Shaggy and Scooby did a lot of, being chased around, basically, by Iron Face. They pretty much, I think Fred, Daphne, and Velma only encountered Iron Face, like, in the beginning of the episode, where Shaggy and Scooby had to deal with Iron Face for the entirety of the episode, which I definitely feel bad for them. But yeah, Shaggy and Scooby were very fun and entertaining, and they fulfilled their basic roles of being their usual funny, cowardly selves. Then we have the villain of the episode, who I thought was good as well. So the main villain of the episode was, of course, old Iron Face, or as Scooby-Doo fans simply like to call him, Iron Face. Iron Face was a really good villain. I wouldn't say he was particularly scary. I mean, he did intimidate. He was very intimidating, though. His stature was quite intimidating. He used an axe to chop down wood when Shaggy and Scooby were on, like, walking sticks with wood. He rode these mechanical sharks and whipped them like they were horses. Like, he was nobody to mess around with. He was quite an intimidating presence. And his backstory was pretty cool. Of this, like, pirate who was, you know, in this jail, and the warden hated looking at him. So just melted and, you know, essentially forced him to wear an iron mask on his face for the entirety of his time in the prison. And it's very similar to the man in the Mask story, I believe in France. There's a French legend of a man in an iron mask somewhere in the 17th or 18th century. There's been a couple stories about it. And this story definitely, I wonder if they took inspiration from that legend or from that story of the man in the iron mask in, you know, France. Because that was definitely, I definitely got the sense from that in this episode that Iron Face's backstory was very similar to the man in the mask in the 17th and 18th century in France. But yeah, Iron Face was pretty intimidating. His stature was very intimidating. He did a lot of creepy and scary things, like chopping down the wood with the axe, pushing down 3 steel doors just to get to Shaggy and Scooby. Incredible display of strength. And riding mechanical sharks like they're horses and whipping them. You know, he just completely badass. Very intimidating. But he was also kind of entertaining, too. I'm not going to lie. Iron Face was pretty funny and entertaining. His growling was pretty goofy, if I'm not going to lie. A lot of the things he did were kind of goofy. But he did intimidating things, so it's not like he wasn't creepy at all. Like, he did have creepy aspects about him. And he wasn't afraid to be threatening and dangerous towards Shaggy and Scooby. In fact, almost taking their lives on certain occasions. So Iron Face was not opposed to threatening people's lives. So he was a very intimidating villain, and had his creepy moments, but he wasn't like very scary. I found him quite more entertaining and enjoyable to watch, which was still good. And he was cool, and you know, his back and forth with Shaggy and Scooby was funny, and his growling was quite goofy, and you know, just the noises he makes and the things he did was quite goofy. So yeah, overall, I like Iron Face as a villain. I think he's really cool. I love the similarities of his backstory to the Man in the Mask from French legends. I like his, you know, intimidating stature, the things he does to display his strength. You know, riding the sharks and whipping them like they're his pets, like they're horses. Just, you know, very awesome villain, very intimidating villain, but still fun and entertaining. So I could see why he stuck. He was quite a entertaining villain to watch, and was a very memorable one. Had a lot of backstory and depth to him. Outside of costume, I found Mama Mion to be a very interesting character. I mean, we learned that she's a champion water skier. Which if you have a keen eye for that detail, I mean, it's pretty hard not to miss that. But if you're paying attention to the episode and you clock that in and remember later, it's a good indication on who the villain of the episode is. And that was a really nice detail, showing that she was like this champion water skier, and she ran this restaurant as, I guess, a cover. But she probably still made business off of it. So on top of doing her side hustle as a villain of smuggling criminals, she also did this front of running a restaurant and made money off of it, I'm assuming, as well, which is pretty great for her. She must have made a fortune out of it. But yeah, she's quite an interesting character, quite a memorable character, and she's the one that gives the backstory on Iron Face. We learn about Iron Face's backstory through her, and who he was. Not necessarily who the guy was in the mask. All we know is that he was like a pirate that was jailed, and that the warden forced him to wear the mask. It's kind of similar to the Man in the Mask French story, where we don't even know that guy's name in real life, and they never found out who it is. There's speculation on who it is, but they never found out who the real Man in the Iron Mask was. So it's kind of similar to that, where they don't give it away, and I like that little nod to that legend, and I think that was kind of cool. But yeah, Mama Mion overall was a very interesting character. We learned a few stuff about her. She gives the backstory on Iron Face, so she overall does a lot outside of costume. I thought there were a good number of suspects in the episode. So you had 2 suspects in the episode. You had Captain Flint, and you had Mama Mion. Now, the episode does a pretty poor job of doing it evenly, because the episode does a lot more to make Mama Mion suspicious than Captain Flint. Captain Flint doesn't really do anything too suspicious, at least not to me. Not really in this episode. He's pretty normal, quite honestly. And we find out later that it's just because the reason he's on the island is because he's another agent in disguise. Where not that we haven't seen that before. But yeah, we have one villain who's Iron Face. So 2 suspects is good. It's a good 50-50. Obviously, Mama Mion was definitely the prime suspect, and it was obvious that Hanna-Barbera was pointing a lot of clues towards her. But it's not unlike Hanna-Barbera to go off the beaten path and go towards, someone who most of the time they go for someone and you don't think it'll be. And other times they throw a loop at you and go for the obvious red herring, the person they've been pointing towards. And in this episode, they go towards the person they were pointing towards, the prime suspect, which is fine because, Hanna-Barbera mostly goes for the unknown person, the person that's less likely, rather than the person that's more likely. And they do it every now and again where they flip-flop, so it's a good 50-50 because you don't know, well, is Hanna-Barbera going to go for the lesser known character, the person that seems less suspicious with Captain Flint, or are they going to go with the red herring, the obvious prime suspect, Mama Mion? And they go with the obvious one, which is fine, and it's good for us because, they give a lot of hints and clues towards her being the villain, which is good. But it's still a good 50-50, and they still have enough to where it's not too bad. So you can have a 50-50 guess on who it could be. Most people probably choose Mama Mion, but sometimes Hanna-Barbera will throw you for a loop and go for someone you didn't think it would be. So it wasn't unlikely that they would go for Captain Flint. Next up, we have the motive of the episode, which I thought was good as well. So Mama Mion's main motive in this episode was that essentially she wanted to scare everyone away so that she could continue her convict smuggling operation unnoticed. So smuggling isn't anything new in Scooby Doo. We've had this plenty of times before. Convict smuggling, this is the second time it's happened. We had this back in the season 2 finale with Captain Clements. It's definitely not as in-depth as Captain Clements is. I'm assuming, I don't know what her extent is. I don't know if she did the same thing as Captain Clements, where she would help the criminals get, out of the country, or if she was just providing them a temporary base of operations or a permanent one to lay low. I'm not sure exactly what operation it was here, whether this was she was bringing them. I'm assuming that it was a temporary base of operations until Mama Mion could get them maybe out of the country, which is probably most likely, and then would have, I don't know, something similar to Captain Clements, I'm guessing. But regardless, this is the second time this motive has been used, and it's pretty close, to be quite honest. And despite it not being as in-depth as Captain Clements' motive in the Season 2 finale, I still like it, because I still like the idea of, a person smuggling convicts, in and out of an area. That's really a neat idea for a motive. And I do like that she has a front this time. She's not like Captain Clements, who's, who's using his own home and is as his kind of like his base of operations, as well as the beach and the water surrounding his lakeside home. Mama Mion is a lot smarter in that she has the restaurant as her cover, where she can still have her business and still makes money off of it, but she makes even more money by smuggling in these convicts in and out of her mansion on Skull Island. So she's making pretty good money, and it's a good money motive and a good smuggling motive. And I do like the layers to the motive. I think that's what really makes it good, because if it was just like, if she didn't have these layers where she had this restaurant business as a front and she used the mechanical sharks as a way to transport the criminals in and out of the area, I think I would just be like, this is just a poor imitation of Captain Clements' motive. And while it kind of is, I still think it has enough layers to it to where I still like it well enough. You know, I do like the shark aspect to it, the fact that the torpedoes are painted as sharks, and, you know, the convicts would be smuggled in that way, you know, in and out of Skull Island that way. And that she used the restaurant as a front, but also as, you know, also as a way to make, you know, as a way for business. Like, she presumed not only did she make money with her restaurant, but she also made money from the convict smuggling operation. So she was probably living well off of this scheme. So this was a very profitable scheme and a very well laid out, you know, very, you know, well executed scheme. You know, it was a very, you know, had a lot of depth to it. You know, it was a great scheme that had a lot of depth to it. And I just had a lot of great layers to it to make it a good motive. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably say it'd be not that great of a motive. But because there was enough layers from it to distinguish it a little bit from Captain Clements' motive, I don't feel it's like a poorer version of that motive. I found the mystery of the episode to be good as well. So the main mystery I found for this episode is that you wanted to know what happened to Captain Morgan. Now, even though we didn't see him before that point because he was kidnapped by Iron Face, it still was quite interesting to figure out, like, what did Iron Face do to Captain Morgan? Because we see the wrecked ship down at the bottom of the ocean near Skull Island. So you're wondering, like, okay, did Captain Morgan get killed by Iron Face? Did Iron Face kidnap him? Did he do something else? What happened to Captain Morgan? What happened to the gang's tour guide? Clearly, this is something serious. Because we already know the backstory for Iron Face, so there's no mystery to him. I guess the only mystery is really who the identity of the real Iron Face was, but that really wasn't important because it was just the legend and the cover story for this Iron Face, whose identity was more important now than the one back in the past. So there really was no mystery about Iron Face's backstory, you know, why he was haunting the area, because we know why. And there's not really much mystery about Skull Island and its prison, because you can kind of make assumptions, most likely, on what the history was like there. So, yeah, the only mystery I found is that you just wanted to know what happened to Captain Morgan in the episode, and the answers we do get are good, because you find out that he was just kidnapped by Iron Face, which was good, but they did sell up a pretty compelling mystery, especially when you saw the wrecked ship at the bottom of the ocean. When the gang saw that, it definitely made things a lot more interesting. You're like, okay, what happened to Captain Morgan? And was he alone? Did he have crew? Like, you know, did they get hurt? You know, what happened with, you know, to Captain Morgan and his ship? How did it end up down there? What did Iron Face do to him? Then we have the clues of the episode, which I thought were good as well. So the clues for the episode were the magnetic crane, the food crates, the underground mansion, and of course the torpedoes painted as sharks. So the clues of the episode didn't really point towards a motive, but they did help narrow down Mama Mion as the prime suspect. The food crates definitely did. And the torpedoes painted as sharks definitely help explain how the convicts were being smuggled. So, and, you know, why the sharks looked metallic earlier, and how Iron Fist was able to tame them and make them go at their command. So the clues overall did fulfill their basic role of explaining how Iron Fist achieved what he did. It also helped narrow down the list of suspects and help point towards Mama Mion as the prime suspect of the episode. I found the atmosphere of the episode to be really good. I felt tension and suspense as well as creepiness and eeriness throughout this entire episode. So, I did fear for the gang's safety, and I was on the edge of my seat, wondering what was going to happen next, because Iron Face was a very intimidating and threatening villain that was willing to do everything and anything to achieve his scheme. So, I definitely did fear, especially for Shaggy and Scooby's safety mainly, because Iron Face was not opposed to using deadly weapons if it meant scaring these teens and this talking dog off this island and got them away from his hideout. So, yeah, Iron Face was definitely very intimidating. I mean, the guy was literally riding sharks and was whipping them. He had an axe at one point, was chopping the wood of the walking sticks down, which could have been dangerous because he probably could have used that on Shaggy and Scooby as well, and I wouldn't put it past him to. I don't know where he even got the axe. And he pushed down 3 steel doors that were nailed shut, locked shut, and Shaggy and Scooby did everything humanly possible to make sure they were shut, and somehow he managed to plow through all 3 of them to get to him, and somehow knew that they were behind the 3rd door. But, yeah, I definitely felt, tension and suspense from the villain of the episode, Iron Face. And I felt creepiness and eeriness from the setting of the episode, which I'll get onto in a little bit. But, yeah, the setting definitely helped provide the creepiness and eeriness of the episode. So we got the best of both worlds. I felt tension and suspense from the villain, and I felt creepiness and eeriness from the setting of the episode, which provided a great atmosphere for this episode. And my final positive is that I found the setting of the episode to be really good. So the main setting of the episode is Skull Island, specifically the Skull Island prison, the abandoned Skull Island prison. Skull Island has been a name that's been thrown around in Scooby-Doo for so many shows at this point that alone would have been not a great setting, because it would have been like, we've had Skull Island as a setting before. What makes it a good setting in my book isn't necessarily that they use the name Skull Island again, but that they mainly have an abandoned prison for the main setting of the episode. I love that idea. Prisons naturally are scary. They're not a great setting at all. It's where the most dangerous criminals are housed, from the low-level ones to the very high and dangerous ones. So prisons are definitely a scary place. And when you factor in it's abandoned, it probably has dark history. And it's on an island too, which reminds me a lot of Alcatraz. And Alcatraz had really dark history. And it's very isolated. So even if the prisoners escaped, they would still have to swim to land. So, and Alcatraz is known for its dark history. It has, it even has, I think it's been known to have paranormal activity to this day. So I kind of view it in that lens, where it's very similar to Alcatraz with its isolated, setting, the isolated nature of it. The fact that we actually haven't had a prison setting for Scooby-Doo. I don't think we've ever had a prison setting in the Scooby-Doo franchise up to this point. And prisons are naturally a great, scary setting for a Scooby-Doo one, especially an abandoned one. An abandoned prison as a setting, yeah, not a great, very scary and creepy setting. And the fact that it's very similar to Alcatraz, and Alcatraz is such a fascinating, setting on its own. I imagine it's very similar, the Skull Island prison, that it has like this dark history, and that that even if prisoners escaped, they would still have to swim to land, and they most likely died while on their way. So yeah, like I love the uniqueness and freshness of it. We hadn't had a prison setting up to this point, and it being abandoned only makes it 10 times scarier. And its similarities to Alcatraz is cool, and the fact that it's very isolated, just like Alcatraz, and it's on this island where you have really no escape, and you're confined to this one island, and it probably has dark history to it. Like, yeah, it's just great choice for a setting. Really glad that they picked a prison setting in Scooby-Doo, an abandoned prison setting for Scooby-Doo. It's something unique and fresh and new we haven't had up to this point, and they executed it really well. Overall, guys, I would personally recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. This is a really good episode. It's one of the best of Season 3 so far. It is a fantastic villain. Iron Face lives up to his expectations by the Scooby-Doo community. I can see why the Scooby-Doo community loves Iron Face as a villain. He is a very well-done villain. He's a very great villain. This fresh and unique setting is great. It really makes it so unique and new. And just to have a great 4-star episode in the season was great. After the many episodes of average to below average to terrible episodes, to have an episode that's finally good really feels good. And I hope we can continue this streak onwards. So yeah, best episode of the season so far. And I highly would recommend you guys check this one out. We'll see if there's any Season 3 episodes that will top this one, but it definitely is worth a watch, and definitely worth your time, if nothing else for Iron Face, because Iron Face is a really fun and entertaining, but intimidating and creepy villain. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Are you like me? Do you consider this a good episode? Do you like Iron Face as a villain? Do you like the fresh and unique setting? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Do you not like this episode? Do you think it's overrated? Do you think Iron Face isn't that great of a villain and the setting isn't as fresh and unique? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you think it's okay, it's average and decent, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts. Let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. Obviously, I'll have more Scooby-Doo reviews on the way. We cover all things ranging from TV shows, movies, video games, books, you name it. We tackle all things Scooby on this channel. So if you like all that stuff, you're a diehard Scooby-Doo fan, a casual Scooby-Doo fan, if you're someone that loves Scooby-Doo and wants to get in on the discussion and talk about each individual episode, movie, video game, and book, and chime in with your own thoughts, this is your chance to do so. I'm open to all opinions. Whether you agree or disagree with me does not matter. I just love talking Scooby with you guys, and so if you're a big Scooby-Doo fan and you want to get in on discussions and chime in with your own thoughts and any insights that you have about these episodes or movies or video games or books, feel free to leave them down below. And yeah, if you like Scooby-Doo content like this, if you love reviews that tackle all things Scooby-Doo, then come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content. In my next video, I will likely conclude my 2025 summer special with a review of Season 3, Episode 8 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled Jeepers, It's the Jaguaro. I'm actually very interested in this episode. I believe I liked this episode back when I first watched it, and I've gone back to it a couple times here or there. So I definitely think this is going to be an interesting episode. I think Jaguar is a pretty well-remembered villain. He's definitely a villain that gets some recognition. So I'm quite interested to see if this episode holds up. And I remember I have good, fond memories of it, so I think it should be good. But we'll see if it lives up to my expectations and the expectations that, that the Scooby-Doo community have held for it, because clearly Jaguaro is a somewhat memorable villain, or at least somewhat well-known villain. So if you want to know my thoughts on Season 3, Episode 8 of the Scooby Doo Show, Jeepers, It's the Jaguaro, then come join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.